Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever walked into a thriving workplace or, logged into a super highly functional virtual team and just wondered, how does this actually work? Like, what really separates a company that's just barely surviving from one that's absolutely thriving? Well, spoiler alert, it isn't magic, and it definitely rarely happens by accident. It's all about decoding this invisible blueprint that builds modern workplace success. So today, we're going to look at the exact foundational elements that allow the absolute best organizations in the world to architect excellence literally from the ground up.
Actually, I want you to take a second and reflect on your own workplace experiences. When the daily chaos hits, when deadlines are looming, emails are piling up, and those unexpected crises pop up out of nowhere, what truly keeps things from falling apart? Is it the software, the management team, or is there this underlying structure just keeping the walls from crumbling down? Understanding that specific structure is exactly what we're focusing on today. And to really get a handle on it, we're going to use a zoom-in approach. We'll start at the massive, global scale and slowly zoom all the way down to the individual human level.
Section 1. Architecting the Modern Workplace, the Blueprint of Organizational Behavior. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this. At the core, we have organizational behavior, or OB. Now, I know that might sound like some dry academic jargon, but I promise you it's anything but. Think of it as the difference between a beautifully synchronized symphony and just a chaotic cacophony of noise. OB is the foundational blueprint. It is the vital framework for literally everything we do at work. It's the actual architecture that dictates how modern workplaces manage the crazy complexity of doing business today. Because without this blueprint, an organization is really just a collection of people blindly guessing at how to work together.
Moving on to Section 2, Navigating Global Macro Shifts, the World at Large.
So we're starting by zooming all the way out to the macro level. These are the massive, fast-moving, and frankly, kind of intimidating tectonic forces shaping the entire business landscape. You literally cannot build a sturdy organization without understanding the weather outside. And right now, the global climate is intense. We're dealing with 4 distinct global shifts acting as these overarching pressures. First up, globalization. Borders are practically invisible now, which means your competitors, partners, and customers are everywhere 24/7. Second, the absolute necessity of coping with change. It's an adapt or die mindset, where the only constant is disruption. Third, workforce diversity. For the first time in history, we've got up to 5 different generations working side by side. That's a collision of different cultures, expectations, and some pretty brilliant perspectives. And finally, labor shortages. We're talking about a severe talent drought, where the exact skills organizations desperately need are harder to find than ever. Literally every single company on Earth is feeling the weight of these 4 pillars.
And notice how those first 2 forces interact with each other. The incredibly rapid pace of globalization means your supply chain can be totally disrupted by an event on the other side of the planet in a matter of minutes. Because of this, the modern environment demands a perpetual state of coping with change. And this is exactly where organizational behavior comes into play. OB provides the structural resilience required to handle these dizzying global shifts. It ensures that a company has the flexibility to just absorb the shock of constant change without its whole foundation collapsing.
Plus, there's this incredible tension happening in the market right now. On one hand, we're seeing a beautifully rich, expanding workforce diversity. Just a massive influx of varied backgrounds, perspectives, and talents entering the modern workforce. But simultaneously, businesses are hitting a really stark reality, the constraints of severe labor shortages. So how do you handle that? Well, a well-architected organization uses the principles of OB to balance these competing global forces. Instead of panicking over a lack of available hands, they tap into those incredibly diverse talent pools to creatively solve problems. It's all about turning a demographic shift into a serious competitive advantage.
Section 3. The Organizational Performance Engine, the Meso-level. So, we've looked at the storm outside. Now let's zoom in to the company level, what we call the Meso-level. We're stepping inside the factory, so to speak, to look directly at the mechanical outputs of a well-architected business. To survive those massive macro shifts we just talked about, an organization needs an engine that runs flawlessly. And that engine? It relies on 3 crucial gears. First, productivity, which is that relentless drive to do more with less. Second, customer service, which means maintaining extreme loyalty even when the market gets turbulent. And third, innovation, which is simply the mandate to stay relevant. If any one of these 3 gears gets stuck, the entire organizational machine just grinds to a halt.
But the really crucial point here is how an organization manages the tension between these gears. A company's internal architecture has to be precisely tuned to drive maximum cold, hard productivity, but it has to do so without sacrificing the warmth and quality of customer service. Think about it. Hyper-efficiency can sometimes feel incredibly cold to a consumer. You can have the most productive output in the world, but if your customer care drops, your foundation rots. OB gives leaders the very specific tools they need to calibrate both.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate goal of all this internal structuring: innovation. Innovation isn't just some happy accident. It's the vital, overarching goal that a finely tuned performance engine ultimately produces. When your productivity is high and your customers are absolutely thrilled, you aren't just putting out fires anymore. You actually create the necessary breathing room and the resources to go out and build the future.
Let's move to the next step and see how this builds into our final and honestly most crucial phase. We're transitioning from the cold organizational metrics of the performance engine to the living, breathing humans who are actually doing the work. Because let's be real, you can design the greatest performance engine in the world, but you literally cannot have that engine without the human element running it.
Section 4. Empowering the human element, the micro level.
This brings us right down to the micro level. We are zooming all the way in, past the global economy, past the company metrics, right down to the individual sitting at their desk or working out on the floor. This is where the true architecture of an organization lives or dies. Here we have the 4 deeply personal elements of organizational behavior. People skills, the absolute currency of modern collaboration. Empowerment, moving decision-making authority away from the boardroom and right down to the front lines. Work-life balance, basically preventing the human engine from overheating. And ethics, the individual moral compass of the workplace. No matter how brilliant your global strategy is, true excellence relies entirely on how individuals are treated, equipped, and supported on, say, a random Tuesday morning at 10 a.m.
Architecting excellence at this individual level means we can't just expect people to act like obedient cogs in a machine. It means actively cultivating their interpersonal people skills so they can communicate flawlessly through all that constant change we discussed earlier. And honestly, even more importantly, it means unleashing empowerment. It's about giving individuals the authority and the profound trust to act independently, to make a tough call, and to solve problems on their own without always having to wait around for a manager's permission.
But as we all know, empowerment without boundaries is just chaos, right? That is exactly why we have the non-negotiable foundation of workplace ethics. Think of ethics as the essential individual guardrails for every single employee. They ensure that as people are empowered to innovate, move fast, and drive productivity, they're doing so with integrity. It's a fundamental structural component. Without ethics acting as that main load-bearing wall, the entire architectural structure we've built today simply collapses under its own weight.
Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, and a question I really want to leave you with today. We've zoomed from sweeping global forces all the way down to individual ethics. But right now, in the relentless pursuit of productivity and innovation, is your workplace architecting true work-life balance, or is it just architecting burnout? The best organizations know for sure that protecting the energy and well-being of their people is the ultimate key to sustaining excellence. So think about your own foundation today. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep building.